Among the Sahaba, there were 7 people who resembled Ashab al-Kahf. Until now, their names have not been mentioned enough. They also experienced various miracles. One of them was martyred, and bees surrounded his body, preventing the disbelievers from approaching. Another was swallowed by the earth, so his body never fell into the hands of the disbelievers. You will hear such things that you will regret not knowing about these heroes, and as you listen to their stories, you will not be able to hold back your tears. Without knowing the Sahaba, this religion cannot be truly known. Without their stories, we will always remain incomplete. These heroes have messages for today's youth. They have stepped out of unread books and come to visit your home. Open your ears, for today we are hosting 2 of them. At the beginning of the 4th year of the Hijrah, in the month of Safar, a deeply painful betrayal took place. The Al-Raji incident. A betrayal at the wells of Al-Raji, a heavy treachery. In response to this, Rasulullah ﷺ made very severe curses which will truly shock you when you hear them. After the Battle of Uhud, there were those who wanted to harm Rasulullah ﷺ, especially the surrounding tribes. Do you think Rasulullah ﷺ was only dealing with Makkah? No. He was also dealing with the surrounding tribes, the Jews in Medina, and the hypocrites within Medina. Dealing with so many people is not something any ordinary person could endure. If one were to reflect on these matters with fairness, they would understand why he was the true prophet. 3 tribes were especially involved: Banu Lihyan, Adal, Kara. The leader of Banu Lihyan, Khalid bin Sufyan, was preparing to attack Medina. When Rasulullah ﷺ received intelligence about the attack in advance, he sent a Sariyah to prevent the problem before it began. The leader of the tribe was killed. Understanding the concept of Sariyah in Islam is crucial. These were the incredible strategic moves of Rasulullah ﷺ. When he received intelligence, he would resolve the matter before it reached Medina. And so, the leader of Banu Lihyan was killed. Banu Lihyan wanted revenge. But did they have the strength? No. They wanted revenge but lacked power. So they resorted to deception. Banu Lihyan devised a plan. Among themselves, they said, "Let's pretend to be Muslims and ask for a teacher of the Qur'an. Muhammad ﷺ will send someone to us to teach us the religion. We will capture them, take revenge, and then sell them to the people of Makkah to make money." The Sahaba they captured would be sold to the Makkans, especially those who had lost relatives in Badr and Uhud. Since the Sahaba had killed their loved ones, they would pay a high price to buy them. This was their plan. Since Banu Lihyan could not go themselves, they sent the Adal and Kara tribes as intermediaries. They came to Rasulullah ﷺ and said, "We have decided to become Muslims. O Messenger of Allah, send us a teacher of the Qur'an." Rasulullah ﷺ had concerns, but his passion for delivering the message often overcame those worries. He was a prophet who constantly thought, will one more person believe? He was the great prophet who was warned, will you harm yourself because they do not believe? For him, one more person hearing the truth was more important than many other matters. That is why, despite his concerns, he still accepted sending people. Hypocrisy always comes disguised. It never announces itself by saying, "I am a hypocrite, I am a polytheist, and I have come to harm your religion." Instead, it begins with words like, "We actually want what is best for you, but," or "We are speaking for the good of Islam." A slander, a gossip, snake tongues, forked tongues, it is always the same. They say, "We are here to make things better." Who would ever say, "We are hypocrites and we have come to harm this religion"? Hypocrisy always comes in beautiful packaging. It appears very polite, very refined, and very well presented. But behind it, there are hidden agendas. May Allah grant us insight so that we can see through their deception. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam would choose those who wished to go. As you know, the Sahaba were always eager and passionate about such missions, and there were already great examples before them. As'ad bin Zurara, Mus'ab bin Umair Maktum. These were the people who opened the gates of Medina. These brave young men were ready to give their lives in service to the cause. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam selected 7 men, led by Asim bin Thabit, and sent them on the mission. The Adal and Kara tribes welcomed them and led them towards the Rechi wells. Rechi was about 70 kilometers from Makkah. Their plan was to take them to Makkah and sell them there. At Rechi, 200 men from the Banu Lihyan tribe were waiting, armed with bows and arrows, as mentioned in the sources. They launched an attack, 200 men against just 7 Sahaba. A rain of arrows fell upon them, for they could not get close to these 7 companions. 4 were martyred, while the remaining 3 were captured. Among the 7, the first to be martyred was Asim bin Thabit. He was from Medina. Before Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam migrated, he had already accepted Islam. After the second pledge of Aqaba, he learned the religion from Maktum. He fought in Badr and Uhud, but he would not participate in any later battles because he would be martyred. He was also known as one of Rasulullah's 3 archers. When the 200 men betrayed and attacked, he stood firm and declared, "I will never accept the protection of the polytheists." Then he began shooting arrows. He had 7 arrows. As he shot, he recited these words, "Death is certain. Life is empty and temporary. Whatever is destined will surely happen. People will, sooner or later, return to Allah." This mindset of martyrdom was deeply ingrained in his heart. Each of his arrows hit the target. When he ran out of arrows, he took up his spear. He fought with his spear until it broke. When his spear broke, he drew his sword. He fought until his last drop of blood and was martyred there. Asim bin Thabit was a man with a bounty on his head, placed by the families of the polytheists he had killed in Uhud. Whoever captured him, dead or alive, would receive 100 camels as a reward. This was a huge fortune in that era. Imagine it as the price of 100 luxury cars today. But Asim bin Thabit had a very famous dua. Let's remember this throughout the video. Allahumma, let no polytheist touch me. He was incredibly firm in Tawhid. However, in the eyes of the betrayers, he was priceless because there was a great reward waiting. And Asim fought until his sword fell from his hands and he was martyred. The polytheists rushed to take his body and carry it to Makkah to claim the reward. But just as they reached out to touch his body, something incredible happened. Swarms of bees began to surround him. Yes, history would remember him as the Sahabi protected by bees. Thousands of bees encircled his blessed body, and not just any bees, large hornets that aggressively prevented anyone from getting close. The polytheists, stunned, said, "Let's set up a tent and wait for the bees to leave. They will surely disperse by nightfall." But they had no idea they were witnessing a miracle. When night came, they checked again. The bees were still there. They threw stones, lit fires, and tried to smoke out the bees, but it was impossible. "Let's wait until dawn," they said. "Maybe when the sun rises, we can try again." But just before sunrise, something astonishing happened. A massive thunderstorm struck. Lightning flashed across the sky, and a powerful rainstorm began. Floodwaters swept away the blessed body of Asim. Yes, Allah took his body away, and from that day on, no one ever found his remains. Was his dua accepted? Allahumma, let no polytheist touch me. Sincerity matters. 200 men had surrounded him. Was it possible for them not to touch him? If Allah wills it, nothing is impossible. Whoever is for Allah, Allah is for them. They returned to Makkah, claiming, "We killed Asim." But since they could not bring back his body, they never received the reward. Now let's move on to another blessed figure, Abdullah bin Tariq. During the battle, they did not kill Abdullah bin Tariq immediately. Instead, they captured him. As they were tying his hands, he fought back again. And in that struggle, he was martyred. Now let's move on to his friend, Hubayb bin Adiyy, the great man swallowed by the earth. After Hubayb bin Adiyy and Zayd bin Dathina were captured, they were taken away to be sold as slaves. On the way, the time for prayer arrived, but their hands were tied. They asked, "Allow us to make ablution." The polytheists refused, so they said, "Then let us perform tayammum with the earth and pray with gestures. Insha'Allah, Allah will accept it." And they did exactly that. The plan to execute Hubayb and Zayd. When they arrived in Makkah, Hubayb and Zayd were placed in separate houses. They were kept imprisoned for a month before their execution. Why? Because it was the sacred months, during which fighting and bloodshed were forbidden, but their fate was already decided. They would be executed publicly to discourage those in Makkah whose hearts had begun to warm toward Islam. There's something important to remember about Hubayb and Zayd. Both were veterans of Badr. What does this mean? It means they had killed Makkans in the Battle of Badr, so they were to be sold to those who had lost loved ones in Badr, so they could take revenge. That was the plan. Hubayb's sale and imprisonment. Hubayb was sold to a member of Banu Nafal, the family of Harith bin Amr bin Naal, whom he had killed in Badr. His foster brother Ibn Abi Juhayna bought Hubayb and chained him up in his home for a month. And now what happens next is truly incredible. The slave girl who witnessed a saint. In the house where Hubayb was chained, there was a servant girl named Mawiyah. She was assigned to take care of Hubayb's basic needs, but something unexpected happened. She was captivated by his character. The more she observed Hubayb, the more her heart warmed to Islam. Eventually, she could no longer resist helping him. One day she asked, "Tell me, what do you want from me?" Because her heart was already inclined toward Islam. And what did Hubayb ask for? Just two things. "Do not feed me meat that was slaughtered in the name of idols. Inform me before I am killed." When the time for his execution came, Hubayb was informed. Did he panic? Not even for a second. His face did not change at all. Do you understand what it means to kill death? Now you can truly appreciate the hadith, "Die before you die." Who were these words spoken for, and why? Mawiyah kept watching him. Her admiration only grew. Just imagine, someone comes to you and says, "You will die in a few days." Think about it. The waiting would be worse than the fire itself. For a human being, the most tormenting thing is waiting. But Hubayb's face did not change. Unbelievable submission. "Oh Allah, place this strength in our hearts. We are in desperate need of it. Our hearts are like dry, cracked earth, yearning for it." Preparing for death, like a groom for his wedding. When Hubayb learned of his impending death, he made a final request. He asked Mawiyah for a blade to shave himself. Because martyrdom to them was like a groom's wedding day. They prepared themselves just like that. Can you believe it? The faith of Mawiyah and the miracle of grapes Mawiyah would eventually embrace Islam. Watching Hubayb, she grew to admire him more and more. One day, she would recount an incredible moment. One day, I entered his room. It was not grape season, and the grapes in his hands were not from Makkah, yet he kept eating grapes continuously. That's when I understood he was being provided for by Allah. This became a well-known event, later practiced as a sunnah, with many similar stories recorded throughout history. One of those who followed this example was Ustad Said Nursi. When he was captured by the Russian commander Nikola Nikolaevich, remember what happened? He was sentenced to execution for refusing to stand up for the commander. And before the execution, what did they ask him? Do you have a last request? His response, 2 rak'ahs of Salah. See, the Hubaybs of this ummah have not disappeared, and they never will. Somewhere in Anatolia, the spirit of Hubayb is still walking. May Allah unite us with them. May we also receive a share of their sincerity and devotion. The final moments of Hubayb. Before being executed, Hubayb performed 2 rak'ahs of Salah. After finishing, he said, I shortened my prayer so that no one would say I was afraid of death. Otherwise, I would have prolonged it. Then he was tied to the tree. 40 people, relatives of those killed in Badr, stood around him holding spears. For them, this was a celebration. The torture began. First, they threw stones. Then they shot arrows at his body, but not in fatal areas. Finally, they moved in with spears, slowly stabbing him, dragging out his suffering. Why? Because the longer it lasted, the more they enjoyed it. Can you even imagine? Have you ever had a splinter stuck in your finger? It bothers you for days, doesn't it? A tiny splinter. I once had one, and I had to cut it out with a knife just to get rid of it. And here, they were stabbing him with spears. Spear after spear, but slowly to maximize the pain. Abu Sufyan's attempt to break him. Abu Sufyan was watching. Even in this state, Hubayb was calm. This was not good for their propaganda. Hubayb needed to break. He needed to say, I am ashamed of being a Muslim. I regret following Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam. Only then would people fear Islam. But Abu Sufyan knew something else. Those who witnessed this would eventually become Muslim. So he approached Hubayb and offered him a deal. Say that you wish Muhammad was in your place instead of you, and I will set you free. What was Hubayb's response? Even if I had 1,000 lives and every day one was sacrificed, I would never say such a thing. I would gladly give them all, as long as nothing happens to him. The true test of love. Do you see this love? Do you understand where true devotion to Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is revealed? It's in difficult times. Is it easy? No. But we must be like them and never change. When does true love reveal itself? In hardship. Did you know that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam often asked his companions a question? Do you love me? Loving Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is not just an emotion. Loving Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is not just about excitement. It is not even just about loyalty. Loving him is part of faith. One day, a man came to Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam and repeatedly said, By Allah, O Messenger of Allah, I love you very much. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam asked him, Do you realize what you are saying? The man repeated, By Allah, O Messenger of Allah, I love you very much. For the 3rd time he said the same words. Then Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam warned him, If you love me, then prepare an armor against poverty, because trials will come upon those who love me faster than a flood rushing towards its destination. People often see hardships and say, if you had done this differently, this wouldn't have happened. But this mindset is blind. This way of thinking is ingratitude. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam struggled so much. Did he, Hasha, ever make a mistake? Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam was sawed in half. Did he, Hasha, do something wrong? Prophet Musa alayhi salam was chased and had to flee to Madian, did he Hasha make a mistake? Prophet Yunus alayhi salam was so overwhelmed that he left his people and was thrown into the sea. Did he Hasha make a mistake? Prophet Nuh's alayhi salam's son Canaan refused to board the ark. Did Nuh teach him wrong? These events are not failures. They are proof that hardships come upon those closest to Allah. Trials are the price of true love. Be prepared, because trials will come like a flood upon those who love Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. The severest trials come to the prophets, the saints, the believers, according to their level of faith. If you love, then be ready to stand firm despite the cost. And Hubayb paid that price with his life. The final moments of Hubayb bin Adiyy before being martyred, Hubayb made a heartfelt dua. O Allah, right now, I see no faces except these enemies. How painful it is. I have no friend beside me. O Allah, I see no familiar face around me. Please, deliver my salam to my beloved messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. At that very moment, in Medina, inside Masjid al-Nabawa, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam suddenly stood up and said, Wa alayka salam, O Hubayb. The Sahaba were shocked and asked, What happened, O Messenger of Allah? Who did you return salam to? Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam replied, Your brother Hubayb has been martyred. From miles away, his dua reached Medina, because when someone sincerely calls upon Allah, their voice is heard. Hubayb's body on display. His body was left hanging for days. Why? To frighten those whose hearts were leaning toward Islam. It was a message to make people afraid of becoming Muslim. But Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam did not allow his body to remain in enemy hands. He sent Amr bin Umayyah to recover Hubayb's body and give him a proper burial. And with that, Hubayb became immortal, not in the eyes of the world, but in the sight of Allah. The miracle of Hubayb's disappearance. Amr bin Umayyah was a man of great skill. As the guards were engaged in conversation, he reached the post where Hubayb's body was hanging. While they were distracted, he cut the ropes. The moment the ropes were severed, Hubayb's body fell to the ground. The sound alerted the guards, and they rushed toward the scene. But Amr quickly hid. After a while, when the area was clear, he emerged to retrieve the body. But what did he see? Hubayb's body was gone. The earth had taken him in and embraced him. From that day forward, he was known as Bala-ul-Ard, the companion swallowed by the earth. And from that day onward, no one ever found Hubayb's body. These are not just stories. They are real. These events happened. We might read them like stories, unaware of their depth. May Allah forgive us, for these are not fairy tales. They are reality. Now, let's move to Zayd's story. To whom was Zayd bin Dathina sold? Since he had killed Umayyah bin Khalaf in Badr, he was sold to Umayyah's son, Safwan bin Umayyah. Safwan then handed him over to his slave, Nasik. He was kept chained for a month. Then he was taken to be executed in the same brutal way as Hubayb, hung up like a crucifix, stoned, shot with arrows, finally speared slowly to prolong the agony. The same suffering that Hubayb endured was now upon Zayd, the ultimate sacrifice. It's beyond difficult to describe, it's beyond difficult to comprehend, and to experience it. Unimaginable. They had given the greatest sacrifice for Allah, to sacrifice oneself. Do you know what that means? It is far harder than sacrificing wealth, to give your own life, your own self for the sake of Allah. This is the greatest sacrifice of all, the ultimate path of self-purification. In Risale-i-Nur, it is said, the path of Naqshbandiya requires 4 renunciations: renouncing the world, renouncing even the hereafter, renouncing one's own self, forgetting even what has been renounced. Do you think Allah, whose treasures are infinite, would not reward such sacrifices? May Allah grant us the honor of being with Hubayb. May Allah make us neighbors of Hubayb in the next life. The curses of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. That day, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam made powerful curses upon the oppressors. See you in the next video, inshallah. Before we go, don't forget to like the video. By doing so, we can spread this story to more people. We are aiming for at least 5,000 likes, inshallah. This will motivate us to prepare the next video with even greater effort. Your comments matter to us. Please write what you felt and share a dua from your heart in the comments. Let's all say Amen together. Let's spread this story to more people. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. May Allah protect you all.